When Donley got home from work that evening and opened the door, she felt something was off. The keyhole seemed to be blocked by something, making it harder to open than usual, as if it was locked from the inside. But the lock was so old that locking it wouldn't really secure it. After jiggling the key for a bit, it opened. Donley wondered why Wei Zhongyang would lock the door when he was home alone. She suddenly had a bad feeling. Lately the factory had been busy with rush orders, so she had been working overtime every day, coming home late into the night the past couple days. Could it be? Wei Zhongyang took advantage of her being at work to bring some woman home to fool around? Thinking this, an image of a woman immediately came to Donley's mind, a woman from their apartment complex who had been acting promiscuous ever since her husband died last year. Whenever Wei Zhongyang ran into her around the complex, he couldn't take his eyes off her as they flirted with their eyes. Donley had scolded him about it before, but Wei Zhongyang said she was being petty and paranoid, and they were just greeting each other normally. Donley instinctively put her ear to the door to listen closely. Her pupils shook, there was quite a bit of noise inside. Donley's heart started pounding wildly. She frantically turned the key. After much effort, the door opened. The first thing Donley did after entering was look down for the woman's shoes. Unexpectedly, there were no woman's shoes, but she saw her daughter Lin Shirua's sneakers. Shirua was 15 and attended a private middle school. She came home once every 2 weeks. She had come home last weekend, so according to habit she wouldn't be coming home this weekend, especially since she hadn't called to say she would. Donley had been so busy at work lately that she hadn't been in touch with her daughter, so she naturally didn't expect her to be home. So when did Shirua come back? And why was the door locked? Moreover, why was the bedroom door closed too? Donley's heart started pounding uncontrollably. Just as she was about to rush to the bedroom, a loud banging noise came from inside, and the next second the door flew open as Shirua burst out, her hair disheveled and her body exposed. If Donley's heart was about to jump out of her chest earlier, at this moment she forgot how to beat at all. "Mom!" Seeing Donley, Shirua cried out in relief and rushed to hide behind her. "You stand right there." Accompanied by a loud roar, Wei Zhongyang charged out of the bedroom after her. Donley was shocked. The Wei Zhongyang in front of her was wearing nothing but underwear. His chest, neck, arms, and face were full of scratch marks. His temple was bleeding from a gash. In that instant, Donley finally understood the feeling of being struck by lightning on a clear day. Seeing Donley, Wei Zhongyang was startled. When did you get back?" Before Donley could respond, he spat viciously on the ground and yelled, "Lin Shirua, get over here." No. "Mom, save me." Shirua screamed in fright. "Wei Zhongyang, what the fuck did you do?" Right before Wei Zhongyang's claws could touch Lin Shirua, Donley kicked him and then furiously bashed his head with her bag. "Wei Zhongyang, how could you assault my daughter? I'll kill you." Donley was used to manual labor and was stronger than most men. In her fury, she beat Wei Zhongyang mercilessly until he was knocked out cold. Donley then took out her phone to call the police, but Shirua snatched it away. "Don't call the police. Mom, don't call the police. I don't want people to know. If you call the police, I'll kill myself." Donley froze. Tears had long been streaming down her face. Hearing this from Shirua felt like thousands of arrows piercing her heart. She wanted to chop Wei Zhongyang up with a knife. She suppressed her grief and rage, quickly helped Shirua get dressed, and took her away from there. Donley wanted to first take Shirua to get examined at the hospital, but Shirua adamantly refused, saying she was fine and Wei Zhongyang didn't succeed. Donley had no choice but to find a hotel to stay in for now. At the hotel, Shirua cried as she recounted to Donley what had happened. She originally didn't plan on coming home this weekend, but she got into a fight with a roommate and was in a bad mood, so she hitchhiked home. By the time she got home it was very late, but unexpectedly Donley still wasn't home from work, only Wei Zhongyang was there lying in bed playing on his phone shirtless. Seeing that she looked sweaty, Wei Zhongyang told her to go take a shower. She didn't want to, but Wei Zhongyang nagged her, saying she'd catch a cold if she stayed sweaty, and he was her dad, so how could he let her get sick? Then he said some vulgar things, implying that she only listened to her mom and not her stepdad, complaining that they were ungrateful. Not wanting to upset Wei Zhongyang, she obediently went to shower. But halfway through, Wei Zhongyang suddenly burst into the bathroom, hugged her and started kissing her. She screamed in fright, but Wei Zhongyang covered her mouth and dragged her to the bedroom. Donley unconsciously covered her own mouth to prevent herself from crying out. Tears seeped through her fingers into her palm and into her mouth, but she couldn't taste any saltiness. Her whole body just felt cold, as if she had fallen into an ice cave of 10,000 years, so cold that her bones shattered and her heart split. The next morning, after accompanying Sharua to eat lunch, Donley again suggested taking her to get examined for injuries, to see if she was hurt anywhere. But Sharua still refused to be touched, saying she was fine and would recover after resting a couple days. She told Donley to hurry to work since the factory was so busy, and there was no need to keep her company. Right then the factory called asking why Donley hadn't shown up yet without taking leave. A batch of goods needed reworking for a customer, they were swamped, and urgently needed her to come in. Donley hesitated, then decided to go to work. She told Sharua to rest well, not go anywhere, order takeout if hungry, and call if anything came up. She had already taken Sharua off from school, so no need to worry about that. Only after seeing Sharua lie down did Donley leave the hotel. However, Donley did not go to the factory. Her daughter had been taken advantage of by the man she had been with for 8 years. How could she be in the mood to work? Screw work, she was going to kill someone. Kill Wei Zhong'ang. When Donley entered the house, the first thing she saw was a mummified Wei Zhong'ang wrapped in gauze. He was using his clamp-like hands to shovel rice into his mouth with a spoon. His face was also swollen like a bun. After Sharua had scratched him yesterday, she bashed his head in with a lamp. Then Donley gave him a vicious beating, injuring him severely indeed. Seeing Donley storm in furiously now, Wei Zhong'ang rolled and crawled away in terror, spilling his takeout. Don't act rashly. Wei Zhong'ang was so frightened he nearly wet himself. Babbling incoherently, he said, "Things aren't how you imagine, not what your daughter told you either. I didn't molest her. She's framing me. Bullshit." Donley rushed up and kicked Wei Zhong'ang down, then grabbed his collar and slapped his already swollen high face, crying. "Wei Zhong'ang, aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning saying that? Why would Sharua frame you? Is she crazy? Wei Zhong'ang, you're utterly perverted. Sharua may not be your biological child, but she lived with you for 8 years. Called you dad. How could you have the heart to make a move on her? You're worse than a pig or dog." Donley scolded more and more fiercely, practically gnashing her teeth. "Back then you boasted to me so arrogantly, said you'd treat me and Sharua well, so I brought Sharua to be with you. But what happened? All these years you've been lazy and useless, while I've worked myself to exhaustion earning money to support you and this family. And you're still not satisfied? Flirting with that widow, chatting with strange women, I've already turned a blind eye, so what more do you want? Huh?" Wei Zhong'ang, Donley wiped her tears and gave a cold laugh. "You can bully me, but don't you dare bully my daughter. I'll castrate you right now, you son of a bitch." Donley then indeed went into the kitchen and grabbed a pair of scissors. Seeing that she was serious, Wei Zhong'ang pissed himself in fright and hurriedly covered his crotch. "What are you doing? Are you crazy? Donley, I'm telling you, if you do this you'll go to jail. You know that right? I really didn't rape Sharua, I really didn't. I also don't know why she's doing this, but I really didn't." Seeing the scissors stabbing towards his lower body, Wei Zhong'ang cried out in panic, "Don't. Donley, don't." As the scissors kept coming closer, Wei Zhong'ang screamed desperately, "Call the police." "We can call the police, right? You say I raped Sharua, so call the police and let them investigate." Wei Zhong'ang wailed in terror, "If I really wanted to rape her, let me rot in jail. Let me die a terrible death. Let me be struck by lightning." Donley did not bring the scissors down in the end. For old time's sake as husband and wife, she gave Wei Zhong'ang a chance to defend himself. So Wei Zhong'ang gave her a completely different account of what happened. "When she came home, I was in bed playing on my phone. I don't know what was up with her that day, she had a weird look in her eyes and kept checking me out. I asked her what was going on but she didn't say. Then right in front of me she took off her jacket, saying she was hot. And I saw, she was just wearing a spaghetti strap underneath." Wei Zhong'ang's face suddenly turned red. He snuck a glance at Donley and mumbled, "That spaghetti strap was so sheer, you could clearly see her nipples. I admit, I did look more than I should have then. Her breasts? I mean, when I first met her she was only 8. Unknowingly she's become a young woman now. She's petite but her breasts aren't small at all, as full as yours. At that time Wei Zhong'ang, you. Don't hit me. If you hit me again I'll die. I just looked a bit more than I should have. Why don't you ask why your daughter was deliberately seducing me? Your mother. I racked my brains but couldn't figure out why she did that then. I'm not making things up, she was really deliberately trying to provoke me. Then she said she wanted to shower. I didn't think too much of it at the time and just went in when she called for help after supposedly slipping. But she grabbed me and asked if I liked her. Wei Zhongang, do you know what you're saying? But Wei Zhongang stood firm, then reported to the police. She was the one who took the initiative to seduce me. She told me to sleep with her, then suddenly changed her mind after I took my clothes off, saying I raped her. She was yelling and screaming, how could I not be afraid? So I covered her mouth, and she smashed my head in with the lamp. Then you came back. I swear if there's one lie, may I be struck by 5 thunders and die a terrible death. 2 days later, Shirua's mood improved somewhat, the slight marks on her face were no longer visible, and she was ready to return to school. The night before checking out of the hotel, the previously quiet Shirua finally took the initiative to speak to Donley. She said, Mom. You spent so much money to send me to this school, but my grades still aren't going up. I've disappointed you. No, don't overthink it. I did send you to this school hoping your grades would improve, but I also know some things don't have returns even with effort. I know you've worked hard, I'm not blaming you. Mom, if I can't get into high school, I don't want to go to vocational school either. I want to open a little shop myself and make money, is that okay? Of course, I support you. I haven't amounted to much in my life. When your dad left, my only wish was to do my best raising you. As long as you're safe, healthy, and happy, I have no other desires. After a brief silence, Shirua turned to look at Donley again and asked, Mom, I don't want to go back to that house anymore. What are you planning to do? I'm planning to divorce Wei Zhongang. Shirua was stunned for a moment. After what he did to you, not reporting it is already letting him off easy. Shirua, you have to know, nothing is more important than you in this world. Him bullying you, divorce is the least I'd do, I'd fight him to the death. Shirua was deeply moved. Mom, thank you. After the divorce, after I graduate middle school, we can open a shop together and make money, right? We'll definitely live better than now. A month later, Donley completed the divorce procedures with Wei Zhongang. As she walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Wei Zhongang still couldn't help but chase after her. Donley, about that incident, I still want to clarify with you again. I really, truly, didn't intend to rape Shirua. No matter how much of an animal I am, I couldn't do something like that. Think about it, with my size, if I wanted to rape her, could she have resisted? I feel she did it on purpose. She deliberately sabotaged our marriage. She? Wei Zhongang. Donley whipped around and glared at Wei Zhongang, stopping him from saying another word. Then she fled in panic. A year later, Donley quit her job and opened a cake shop with Shirua. She had studied baking before, and thought about opening her own shop to earn more money and improve their lives. But she was never able to make it happen. Her ex-husband gambled away her money like Wei Zhongang, then relied on her when he got sick. Out of consideration that he was Shirua's father, she swallowed her grievances and took care of him until he died. She didn't know that little Shirua didn't actually love that man so much, and even hated him a little. She also never felt Donley taking care of her abusive husband was something praiseworthy, only felt it was undeserved of her. But she was still young after all, and didn't dare express her true feelings, afraid it would go against ethics and make people see her as wicked and abnormal at such a young age. What's more, she wasn't even certain if her thoughts were right or wrong, if they could be considered malicious. To this day she still remembered feeling nothing but relief instead of grief when her father breathed his last. That day, Donley came in through the side door after delivering cakes to a customer, and heard Shirua talking to someone on the phone. The other person seemed to be asking about her recent life. She replied, "It's great. I feel very fulfilled every day now. Business at the shop is booming, lots of people buy our desserts. My mom? Do I even need to say it? Life's so much better after leaving that jerk. We're saving all the money we earn, it won't be long before we can mortgage a small house. Haha, of course I have to thank you. If not for your help back then, my plan wouldn't have succeeded, and my mom wouldn't have divorced that scumbag so decisively." She sighed like a mature adult, reflecting emotionally, "My mom is too bound by family values, and also way too soft-hearted, so soft even I as her daughter want to scold her for foolishness. I'm different, I'm more selfish than my mom. I couldn't stand her working herself exhausted to support a perfectly able deadbeat, who even messes with other women and uses her money to give gifts to other women. It was useless, I know her. Didn't I tell you? I tried showing her evidence he was fooling around and she still let it go. My mom just lacks confidence. She was deprived of love since childhood, so she's especially afraid of losing things. Even if it's a scumbag, she can't bear to throw them away, and doesn't believe she can raise me well on her own. Luckily I know I'm her only weakness. Others can shit on her head, but touch me, absolutely not allowed. I didn't wrongly accuse him either. Whenever my mom wasn't home these years, he ogled me no shortage of times. My mom served him for 8 bitter years. Him looking at me even once was a crime. If he had any conscience at all, he wouldn't have taken the bait. Alright, I gotta go. My mom's coming back soon from delivering cakes. I'll treat you to a meal another day. Donley waited outside the door for a while longer, until Sherua had hung up and washed her hands, before pretending to have just returned. She roughly knew who was on the other end of the call. She vaguely sensed a girl following her suspiciously on her way home from work that day a year ago. When she looked back, the girl was gone. At this moment, she finally understood the truth. The one who followed her that day must be the person Sherua was talking to now. It was because she was being tailed and getting live updates of Donley's location that Sherua could carry out her plan according to when Donley got home, ensuring she wouldn't actually be violated while also letting Donley catch her being mistreated red-handed. Donley was shocked. She never realized Sherua's petite body contained maturity and cunning that even adults, let alone children, seldom possessed. She did all this to help her break out of her failed and pathetic state, to help her rebuild herself and live the better life she could have had. Donley knew Sherua's intention was good. She also knew Sherua loved her as much as she loved Sherua. She further knew it was her own weakness and incompetence that led an innocent child to become so complex and unfathomable. She was touched by her precocious wisdom, yet also worried about her willfulness, afraid she would stray from the right path and make mistakes in the future. In fact, she had already made a mistake for her sake, right? Donley understood she needed to find an appropriate chance to open up with Sherua and have a good talk. She was so precious. Donley absolutely could not allow her to take any risks for anyone, no matter how sure she was. Donley determined one thing: she would cherish and care for Sherua even more in the long period ahead. She would no longer let Sherua scheme and plot anything immoral or illegal for her sake. She wanted to regain Sherua's trust and dependence with her own love and change, giving her sufficient sense of security and calling back her girlish innocence. She would devote all the time and energy once wasted on unworthy people to building their business and tasting life together with Sherua. To learn and grow together, embracing their brand new future.